Hello, my name is Peter Martin from OGR Stock Denton. As you can see, I'm working from home, as probably most people are, and with self-isolation, things can get quite difficult at home. Luckily, I don't have young children around anymore. My kids are all grown up. I've been a specialist family lawyer for something like 40 years and a specialist mediator for 30 years. But that does mean my children are older and having their own problems with the grandchildren at home. Anyone in that situation has huge sympathies from me. What I wanted to talk about today was what you can do if your relationship has broken down or is in the process of breaking down, and what you can do if you're either living in the same place or living separately. Of course, there's huge uncertainty with the breakdown of a relationship, and that's actually one of the difficult things. People are worried about what's going to happen with the children, how often they're going to see the children, how much time they're going to spend with each parent. There's also the financial worries, obviously, particularly now, financial worries about the division of the family assets. Is the house going to be sold? What you're going to do in the interim? And actually, it's the uncertainties that are created by relationship breakdown that can be one of the greatest problems. So what can you do to start getting rid of the uncertainties? Well, there is a process called mediation, and mediation, sorry, just turn off my phone because it was dinging. Mediation is a process which enables a couple to try to sort things out for themselves, and particularly when it's more difficult to get legal advice at the moment, that can be very helpful. So with a mediator is impartial. They will not give you individual advice, but can give you legal information and can guide a couple to working out what it is that's going to happen, both in relation to the children, who they're going to live with, how often they're going to be with each parent, and also, of course, in relation to all of the financial issues. Now, that process usually works by having both parties in the room at the same time and actually trying to discuss things. So it's actually designed for direct discussion. Now, obviously, in the current circumstances, you can't necessarily be in the same room together as easily, particularly if you're actually living in separate places. But in fact, Zoom meetings work very well because you're together but apart. And that can actually help sometimes in de-stressing the situation. In order to have a Zoom mediation, you'd need to contact a mediator who does that type of thing, someone like me. There is an organization called the Family Mediation Council, and they have lists of mediators in areas, and they're actually trying to find out at the moment who's Zooming and who's not. One of the advantages of Zoom is, of course, your mediator doesn't have to be local to you, as previously, if you had to go to meetings, you'd want somewhere you can go easily. With Zoom, you can just go. I did one the other day with someone who was in Devon and the other person was in Cambridge. And that worked very well because we were just all on the screen at the same time together. So mediation can work. It's a guided process that deals with the finances by taking you through full disclosure of financial information. Again, that can all be dealt with remotely. And then takes you on through the process of trying to sort things out. So mediation is certainly worth trying. You can find out a bit more about mediation on my firm's website and also from the website of the Family Mediation Council, or indeed Resolution have information about that. Resolution is the Association of Family Lawyers, but I have to say the information about mediation isn't quite so easy to find there. I'm trying to get them to sort that out as well. So mediation can work. It can help you to de-stress the situation. One of the problems that people have, and that will be made even worse if you're shut up in the same home together, is obviously communication. And I work with family therapists who are communication experts who are also able to work by Zoom, and that can go alongside the mediation itself and actually help you to essentially create rules for working together and actually occupying the same home, even if they have to be clear rules about what time each of you are in the kitchens or how you're going to look after the children. Having a rota of doing that so that you both know where you are can sometimes really help in that situation. So there are other processes available as well. If you really can't talk to each other without third-party help and advice at the same time, there is something called collaborative law. Now, collaborative law works where the lawyers and the clients together have four-way meetings in which they try to sort out the finances. In a way, it's like mediation, but actually having your lawyers there with you. Obviously, that's much more expensive than just paying a mediator, because you're each paying for your own lawyers, but again, can be quite effective. And using the collaborative process can be very useful, because the lawyers take on a slightly different approach. They're not just advising you as to what's best for you, but also advising you as to what's best, obviously in their view, for the family, and trying to find a solution that works for the family as a whole, rather than just their individual clients. And again, that can be a very useful process. There are other processes as well. There's something called arbitration, but I won't talk about that in this session in any detail. Arbitration is designed, basically you have a private judge, and there's going to be many people whose cases have been going through the courts, but will now be stuck for months and months without being able to get a proper hearing. And if you can't sort things out for yourself and you need a judge to do it, well, arbitration appoints an agreed individual. So your solicitors would agree the individual who is to do it, and they would then arbitrate. There's lots more things I could talk about as well, but that's probably long enough for this session. But finally, I would mention one thing about wills. If you have a will which leaves everything to your spouse and your marriage is breaking up, you may well think that you want to change it, and that would be a very sensible thing to do, to change your will, because you might want to benefit your children rather than your spouse. And here at OGR Stockdenton, we have a will department who are geared up and ready to deal with this sort of thing, because at OGR, it's business as usual, really. We're all working from home, but everything else is going on as usual. And dealing with wills, particularly at a time when I think we're all thinking about our own mortality a little bit more, is probably very important. So if you don't have a will, you need to have one, because you don't want the intestacy laws to apply, which might mean that everything goes to your spouse if you were to die in any event, and you may want to protect your children more. So get in touch with us in relation to that. So thank you for listening, and there will, I think, be an arrangement for taking some questions that we can answer by email, and keep in touch, and keep well and keep safe. Thank you.